The number one most important ranking factor to all search is relevance. How relevant is your content for the search that's being done? And that is why this number one most important skill for all content creators is search analysis. We call it search analysis because our approach to identifying topics to write about is based upon searches. What are people actually searching when they come to the web? And then we create content that's catered to helping those people get their answers. Another term for this is keyword research. That's based upon the old method that Google and other search engines used to categorize content. They would take words that people would search, and they would look for those words that would appear in the content, as well as in certain tags that website creators would put in the code of the page. That's not how it works anymore. Today, Google is smart enough to recognize that multiple different searches that use totally different words can mean the same thing. They can provide essentially the same search results no matter how you phrase the question. So we analyze searches. And there's not a better way that I can think of really to show you how this works in practice than to give you an example. So today, I'm gonna roast a post. That's right, I'm gonna be roasting one of your blog posts. Despite the fact that this is a well-written article on a very nice website, I am gonna get a little bit roasty, and that's because, I mean, really, that's more fun, right? But also because I want to highlight the things that are preventing this whole website from succeeding by highlighting them in this one blog post. So here's the blog post, and right now, it's looking a little bit like a raw Thanksgiving turkey. It's time for a good roasting, okay? It looks very nice. It's very clean. It's well laid out. Yeah, we're a bit heavy on the ads, and that's probably not helping you, but I don't think that's destroying you from an SEO standpoint. Now, you may be wondering, Ricky, you started this video talking about search analysis. Why aren't we talking about search analysis? I'm gonna get back to that in just a second. You'll see how all of this will tie together. Let's talk about these subheadings. So they're here in the table of contents, which is good, so we can see them all in one place. How to help siblings get along better. Okay, that feels like the whole topic. Siblings getting along better, isn't that the same thing as minimizing sibling rivalry? Pretty close, right? When conflict hits. Okay, what we need to do is we need to treat these subheadings as if they were individual headlines for articles, partly because Google is treating them that way now. Tips to get your children to share, and then maybe in parentheses, all ages, is gonna be a little bit more beneficial here than sharing at different ages. And so it's gonna be able to rank if somebody's searching for like, how do I get my 5-year-old kid to share better? Well, good, you've got a segment of your article that answers that question, even if they weren't actually searching about sibling rivalry. You're gonna be able to rank for more things. It's part of search analysis. We're gonna come back to that even more. Let's look at some more of these. Why giving choices like these works to end sibling rivalry. Okay, that's better. Instead, a title something more like, Stop Sibling Rivalry by Giving Children Choices. It's just a little bit more descriptive and a little bit more standalone. Some more here. What are the main causes of sibling rivalry? I think that's fine. I think you could also state it not as a question. The 5 main causes of sibling rivalry. Managing sibling rivalry is important. That kind of feels obvious. So let's come up with a little bit better title, and then maybe that will help us craft better content for that section. Again, that's gonna do a little bit better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? There's a whole bunch of these. This is actually a fairly long blog post at a little over 2,700 words, which is good. It's very thorough. But I think what's happened here is you've gone for length to try to beat the competition over additional value, uniqueness, etc. It looks very nice. It's very well formatted. I like that you have a few elements that help things to stand out. You've got, some of these little like back and forths in quotes, I think are nice. Bulleted list right here. I found a couple of kind of call out boxes, not necessarily boxes, but little elements that stand out a little bit more. Right here, that's what I was looking for. Just a little element to make it stand out, and you've used it again up here with some of that sort of quote. I think that formatting is all very, very good. You've done all of that right. However, when I Google how to minimize sibling rivalry, which is essentially your title. In fact, it almost is exactly your title, how to minimize sibling rivalry at home. As I scroll through the search results, your site is nowhere to be found on page 1. Now, parenting is a very competitive niche, And you're coupling that with the fact that it's also a health and medical related topic, which means that Google, other search engines too, but Google specifically, is going to give preference to sites that have established authority in that space. And it's because it's critical that people get it right. If somebody's teaching very bad parenting tactics, but using good SEO techniques, then people would learn bad things. And so they're trying to make sure that what they're saying is accurate. As it is, your site is a site from a parent, which is a person with expertise in parenting, but maybe not the same type of expertise. And so what do we need to do? We need to focus on the areas that a parent's expertise is going to be valued similarly or better than potentially a doctor's expertise. Sibling rivalry could be one of those areas. I do think maybe like a therapist or psychologist or something would definitely be able to lend additional authority here, which is part of why some of those big sites are able to do so well. Let's dive into the search analysis here though. What could we do to address the sibling rivalry topic and help you to actually get organic traffic to this type of an article? Well, let's start here at the bottom, related searches. How to overcome sibling rivalry in adulthood. Now, this is a different topic. This isn't what you've written about. And so I think we should leave that alone. What causes sibling rivalry? Well, you've addressed that in your article. Is that something that maybe merits its own article? Should that have been split out? Is that something where we could address it a little bit in this article, but then interlink to another article about sibling rivalry to create more content in this sort of category of parenting? Again, we got sibling rivalry in adulthood, sibling rivalry disorder symptoms. It sounds like that's going to be way more medical. We're going to leave that alone. How to avoid sibling rivalry with new baby. That one feels like something that we could kind of pull into here, potentially write it as its own article, but also be able to interlink back and forth between. By doing that, by creating more content around sibling rivalry, and just filling out the site with that level of information is going to build up your authoritativeness within the sibling rivalry space, within that subcategory. Effects of sibling rivalry. You do have a subheading about, it's important to manage sibling rivalry or something along those lines. That seems like a statement. What's the additional information there? It feels like you've kind of covered that. But maybe why it's important, or 3 reasons why managing sibling rivalry is important. Well, covering that here, there's people searching, what are the effects of sibling rivalry? And if I follow that search, I don't find your article either. So could we make sure that we cover that in further detail as well? Now let's go up here. The people also ask is a really awesome place to figure out a little bit more about search intent. Now, it seems obvious. If I'm trying to figure out how to minimize sibling rivalry at home, I'm probably a parent or maybe potentially a child, a teenager who's searching for how I can better interact with my siblings. But it's mostly going to be parents, right? And they're trying to figure out how to get their kids to stop fighting so much. So that seems fairly obvious, but let's dive in a little bit further. Some of the top other questions that people also ask about sibling rivalry or relative to minimizing it are what causes it. Okay, we want to make sure that we address that on the site one way or another, even if, again, you're not going to directly rank for that. How do you handle sibling conflict? Notice that sibling conflict and sibling rivalry, they're very related, but sibling rivalry feels more, involved. It feels like we've taken this further. Like, not only do I argue with my siblings, but we're rivals. We're like at odds all the time, constantly trying to one up the other. Maybe we want to be the favorite, maybe whatever it is, okay? So that takes a step further. Could we use the terminology sibling conflict throughout the blog post in at least some places to show that the two are very interrelated? And that will actually help Google to recognize that your article is actually about sibling conflict as well and how to minimize that. Notice that when I started, there were only 2 people also asked, but I opened up a couple and look what it did. It gave me a whole bunch more. Back to the adults. Is it normal for siblings to physically fight? Could we answer that question in the blog post? I think you could directly write at least one short paragraph that is an answer target to potentially replace this. Here, is it normal for siblings to physically fight? Let's look at the answer, the snippet that's one here. None of this is actually answering whether or not it's normal for siblings to get physical when they are rivals or when they have conflict. So could we answer this question better and potentially outrank some of this other content? And notice I just got a couple more. Is it illegal for your brother to hit? Why do sisters argue so much? Can you sue your brother for hitting you? We're starting to maybe go a little bit too far down the rabbit hole at some point, but the more of these I open, the more of these that open up. And that can give you more insights into the types of things people are actually searching so that we can make sure that we craft content that addresses their questions. Search analysis is hard. It's something that most people are going to get wrong for a long time until either it clicks that they're doing something wrong or somebody explains it to them. I'm trying to be the one to explain that to you today, and if you're finding that helpful, I'd appreciate it if you'd like this video. So back to the post. Have we addressed some of those main questions around sibling rivalry that Google says at least are some of the top questions? When conflict hits, that's kind of like what to do when conflict hits. What to do, another what to do, why you should do the things I already told you, what causes the things I'm telling you about. Now, these are questions people are asking. What are the causes? Okay, that's a good one. I'm glad that we covered that. Putting an end to kids fighting over toys. Okay, now we're getting really specific. Sharing is hard for siblings. Well, okay, that feels like it's part of causes. This article could use a little bit better structure. Probably condense it, make it even potentially shorter, but answer the questions more clearly. If we're going to answer additional questions in this same blog post, then we better make sure that we answer them in a place that feels logically consistent with the article. Starting off, there should be a nice answer target that just clearly answers, in fact, maybe even answer a different question, like, is sibling rivalry normal? You might answer the question with, studies show that in families with 2 or more children, sibling rivalry tends to occur to some degree in 80% of families. You could probably find that sort of data. And then you could say, but managing that sibling rivalry is very important so it doesn't turn into bad relationships. And then you go into, these are the things that cause sibling rivalry and why that matters. You could talk about some of the really negative effects of sibling rivalry, so why it's important to manage it. And then I would dive into, as you see sibling rivalry crop up, here's what you do. If you're already in a family with sibling rivalry, here's what you do. If you're an adult and sibling rivalry has run rampant your whole life and you have a bad relationship, here's what you do. If I'm writing a complete guide to sibling rivalry, that's my approach. I'm walking through it and putting everything in very, very clear logical sections and answering all the questions. Then in this blog post, I'm going to touch on each of those things, and then maybe I have an entire article on adult sibling rivalry, an article on dealing with sibling rivalry that's already kind of at advanced stages within my family, and another full article about preventing sibling rivalry in young families. And then I can link out to each of those resources from this one that's maybe more of the catch-all that addresses each of those, but maybe at a more superficial level. You can see how these are all slightly different topics. And by trying to write one overarching article, you're competing with these huge websites that are just full of medical content. Whereas by breaking it down and diving deeper on individual topics that people are actually still searching for, we're able to write more thorough and better answers than any of the big guys are willing to do. And that's how you build up authority from the beginning. And eventually, your big article that sort of covers the whole topic, that's gonna rank because you will have established authority. So what are we doing now? We're gonna go through Google here, and we are going to make a list, a substantial list of many questions that are being asked by searchers, and write them all out. And then what we're gonna do is group them together into just logical groupings, and we're gonna write potentially several blog posts addressing each of those groupings, making sure that each question is very, very, very clearly answered to the point that you could win a Google snippet for every single one of the questions. Then from each one of those articles, we're gonna wanna make sure that we put a link at least once, if not 2 or 3 times throughout the blog post, to the main article that's just all about sibling rivalry, the one you've already written. We're gonna modify that article so that it is more of a sort of a catch-all, and it does address everything, but it stays at that more superficial level, but then it links back out to all of those individual pieces of content. And now they're all linked together, and they are able to build additional credibility for your website within the topic of sibling rivalry. So now, instead of treating sibling rivalry as one keyword to write about, we're treating it as a topic with various search queries all around this singular topic, each search query being something that we could potentially write about either as its own article or where we can group multiple queries together and write articles that address multiple questions, all of them within the subtopic of sibling rivalry. That is one very important angle of search analysis. Search analysis is actually our entire process that we use to identify these search queries, usually before we've written an article, not after the fact. That said, the same process can be used in reverse as we're discussing here today. To learn more about search analysis and exactly how we do this for all of our sites, the entire process can be found in Project 24. Project 24 is our membership that just covers everything. Anything that any of us have ever figured out about blogging, YouTube, internet marketing in any way is all included as part of Project 24, as well as a community of like a ton of internet marketers, people who are doing the same thing you and I are doing every single day, who are helping one another to succeed. I hope to see you inside Project 24. If you're not in there now, it's okay, I understand, but it's gonna help a lot and help you to avoid the mistake that has prevented this website from being able to take off despite the fact that she's doing so many things well. We just need to get the most important one right. We'll see you next time.